Hey there everybody, Travis Bowman here. I'm a fingerstyle guitar player and a retro video game nerd. Let's talk about some flash cartridges for your Neo Geo AES console. Now before we do that, the question is, why would you want one of these in the first place? Well, the main reason of course is price. These games, original games for the Neo Geo AES and even now the MVS have really kind of skyrocketed, and to be honest, they weren't really that cheap to begin with. So you could see why the flash cartridge would be a good option for this system in particular, considering that getting an actual collection of Neo Geo games is really kind of out of the question for most people. It's just too damn expensive. So the idea with flash cartridges, not just for the Neo Geo system, but for many others, is I'm going to spend a large chunk of money and then I will have the option to play pretty much any game that I want to on original hardware. Now with the Neo Geo, we've actually got a few different options, unlike some of the other consoles like the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, TurboGrafx-16. There's really only one option for most of that stuff, and it's probably going to be Crix. Crix is the guy that kind of started the whole EverDrive thing, and his EverDrive line of cartridges are probably the gold standard for most flash cartridges these days. So as far as I can tell, as of the making of this video, there are really only 4 options for flash cartridges on your Neo Geo AES, and I have 3 out of the 4 to talk about today. I don't have the 4th one, and we'll get to that here in a second. Let's start cheapest and work our way up to the most expensive. This is probably the first flash cartridge that you will ever get for the Neo Geo, most people anyway. This is the Multigame 161 in 1 cartridge. Now this is a flash cartridge that's manufactured in China. They're very widely available. They're really not that expensive, but when we're talking Neo Geo, things are expensive still. This runs you probably anywhere between $100 and $150, in some cases maybe $200 depending on where you're looking. But this is an AliExpress situation. You won't have an issue finding something like this probably anytime. There's just so many of them out there. So this one actually differs from the other flash cartridges that we're going to take a look at. This does not have an SD card slot. You cannot take and remove a card out of this cartridge and add and remove the games of your choosing. It doesn't work like that with this one. Whatever's on this card is what you get. There's 161, even though that number's kind of not accurate. Some of these games are just duplicates or hacked versions, homebrew versions or whatever. It's not as good as it sounds, to be honest, with this cartridge. But at the end of the day, this is a wonderful solution if you just want to play some Neo Geo games on your AES. The main drawback with a cartridge like this is it doesn't have everything. Now, just off the top of my head, the 2 heavy hitters that are going to be missing from this cartridge are Magician Lord and Shock Troopers. Not Shock Troopers 2, that one's on here, but Shock Troopers 1. In my opinion, it's the better game. There's a lot less slowdown going on in that game compared to the second one, but this is the bare bones experience on your Neo Geo AES for flash cartridges anyway. And a lot of people have negative things to say about this particular cartridge. They're saying that it's not good to use on your system, that it could damage your system. But then I hear conflicting reports of people saying that those people don't know what they're talking about. I'll leave that up to you in the comments section. If you've had a negative experience with this, let us know. I've been using it for about a year now, and I've never had any issues that are detrimental to my AES or causing any damage or anything like that. It's a plug-and-play solution. You just plug it in, and I'm sure you're seeing some B-roll footage right now of all of the games that are on there. For the most part, most of them work just fine. There's only a couple that I'm having issues with. But yeah, for a lot of people, this is the solution for a flash cartridge. It's not perfect. Some of the games don't run as well as they probably should. But hey, for what you're getting, this is actually a really good value. Okay, so let's say that you are not satisfied with that experience and you want a little more control in what you have on your cartridge. Enter the Neo SD for your Neo Geo AES by Terraonion. Now this is a flash cartridge that does have an SD card slot in it. Now we're getting into the territory of an actual flash card experience where you have the SD card that you can take out of the system, add games, what have you. Even so, this is not anywhere close to being like an EverDrive. The Neo SD has its own kind of proprietary format on that SD card. You have to get a program on your computer that will basically tell the SD card, hey, this is what we need to do. This is what the Neo SD is going to like. And then after that, you should be good to go. But for the most part, it should be a one-time thing of setting up your SD card. Just get all of them on there. Get all the games on there, and you should be good to go. It really wasn't that crazy of an experience. Now, back in the day, apparently that program was really kind of not so good. But as of today, right now, it's not that bad. I didn't have any issues with it loading up that SD card. It was a one-time thing. Neo Geo systems in particular, with your flash cartridge situation, is not like the Game Boy or the Sega Genesis. On those systems, you would load up a game and you can go through a giant list of games and have them sorted however you want, and you can just load them up and then you're good to go. The Neo Geo is a little bit more complicated than that, at least on this one, and the one I'm going to show you here in a little bit. You have one slot where you can load up one game at a time. Okay, so let's say you've done that, it's loaded up, and now you want to try another game. You have to delete that previous game from that flash slot and then load it up with another one. So there's a lot of loading. It does take quite some time. Is that a deal breaker for you? You're about to see some shots on screen of this process taking place, and it does take quite a while depending on the size of the game. Some of those games are quite large, like some of the later King of Fighters and Metal Slug games. Those can be quite big. They'll take a lot of time to load up before you can actually play the game. Now, for some people, that is a deal breaker. For some people, they just don't want to deal with that. Honestly, for me, it's not that big of a deal considering what I'm dealing with. This is a Neo Geo. You know, it's really cool that we even have this, considering the history of the console and the price of the games. You know, we are beggars, and beggars can't be choosers. It's either you spend the tens of thousands of dollars to have a complete-ish collection, or you spend a large chunk of money and get a flash cartridge. That load time is what we have to deal with if we want to enjoy these games on original hardware. So reading the back of this box, it says, loads games quickly off of a micro SD up to 32 gigabytes, which is probably not factual. Let's start with the SD card. I've got a 64 gig in mine, and I've got no issues loading it up. It says up to 32, but you can do a 64 gig. Load games quickly? No, that's not gonna happen. I think your time frame for this, depending on the game, is anywhere from about 20 seconds upwards of like 2 minutes, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments section, but that seems to be what's going on with this particular cartridge. Okay, so now that you know what this is, it's $500. This is a $500 flash cartridge, which is an insane amount of money. But if you want 2 games on your Neo Geo AES, 2 of the heavy hitters that are actually good games, you're probably going to be spending that amount of money anyway. So what do you want? A flash cartridge with load times, or 2 games for $500? You're gonna have to spend money. If you want to get into the Neo Geo, you have to spend money. There's no other way around that. Unless you do emulation, which we'll talk about here in a little while. But as far as playing on original hardware, that's kind of what you have to deal with. All right, now let's talk about the Rolls Royce of flash cartridges for your Neo Geo AES. Same thing, Neo SD, but this time it's the Pro version, the professional version, Neo Geo SD Pro. Okay, so what's the difference between the regular Neo SD and the SD Pro? Well, it's the same sort of situation. You still have to deal with the load times, but now you've got 5 slots instead of just 1. So you've got flash slots and then RAM slots to deal with. Now, that's really cool. You've got basically a situation where you can pick 5 of your favorite games that you're going to be playing for a long time and have them, you know, kind of loaded up into that memory, and it won't take as long to load those games up, which is a really, really nice touch. Or you could have like 4 games loaded up, and then you could have the 5th one reserved for any random game that you might want to just try. So there's options there, and it does cut down on the load times a little bit, but I think the most recent addition via firmware update with this cartridge, the Neo SD Pro, is the ability to play Neo Geo CD games, which is a really, really nice addition, considering that it's a separate console altogether, and it uses a different format, CDs instead of cartridges. So the ability to tap into that system and play it on your AES is actually a really cool addition. The problem is, not all of them work. And I was having a difficult time finding a complete list of games that are confirmed to be compatible, so it's just a situation where you probably want to throw all of them on there and do a little testing yourself. which is not ideal, but hey, it's a free system on top of this cartridge. So that's actually kind of cool. And I have tested that out on my Neo Geo AES. But that being said, I do have a Neo Geo CD console with an ODE mod. So I've got an SD card situation in my Neo Geo CD. So that feature for somebody like me is not going to be as important to maybe somebody like you who's just jumping into the Neo Geo. Okay, so now you know what this is. It's basically just a beefier version of what I just showed you. Price, $650. That stings, does it not? It's really expensive. It's almost $1,000 just for this. It's just a cartridge with an SD card slot in it that you insert in your console and play games on. It's insane. People have a hard time justifying that, but the hardcore Neo Geo guys don't. They actually do like that. They like having a solution that you can play all of your games on. And this is not just for the AES, by the way. All three cartridges that I've shown you so far, they have MVS versions as well. So imagine yourself having a giant red Neo Geo cabinet. You could use this in an arcade setting, you know, the ability to have all the games together. If you had one of these in your house, or if you manage an arcade, you know, there's all sorts of different applications that you could use these carts for. And I think it's a really cool idea, but the price is ridiculous. So I have to say something about the Terraonion cartridges for just a second. I did a video about this already, and if you're subscribed to my channel, you've probably already seen it, but I was having major issues with the Neo SD Pro with my particular AES. Mine is an early revision. It's the first revision console. It's a 5-volt Neo-AES revision. And apparently, with this new batch of Neo SD Pros that have come out, I'm having some incompatibility issues, and I've tested this out with my console, and I've been chatting with Stone Age Gamer, who are good friends of mine, and they have also told me of a confirmed case of this not working with that particular revision. And when I say revision, I mean this revision of console, and also this batch of Neo SD Pros. Apparently, the earlier versions of this that were released earlier, you know, last year or so, they didn't have that problem. So I'm reaching out to Terraonion, trying to get them to do something about this and possibly fix this, but my problem is Terraonion is not that great with customer service, and that's a whole other thing altogether. I made a video about that as well, and that's something that you probably should know before you spend the money to get one of these cartridges. The Neo SD and the Neo SD Pro, two cartridges that are very expensive, $500 and then $650. I will tell you this, if you are planning on buying one of these yourself, go with Stone Age Gamer. Don't get it directly from Terraonion. It's just not a good idea because their customer service is not great. At least the guys at Stone Age Gamer will make an attempt to help you, and that's really all I can say about that right now. So the question is, which one of these is going to be right for you? Well, it just depends. What console do you have? Is it MVS or AES? Does that make a difference? From what I understand, the MVS consoles are just better all around. The AES consoles tend to have problems with power and compatibility, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. From what I understand, people tend to really favor the MVS as far as a reliable source in their home, and I think I'm seeing that now. After I've jumped into the AES, I should have gone the MVS route just because of the issues that I'm having with the power and everything. Apparently the MVS is the way to go. Now, the one cartridge that I did not mention is one by Darksoft, which is pretty much the same sort of situation as this Terraonion offering, give or take a few features, but it's $600 instead of $650. And it's out of stock as of the making of this video. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen it in stock. And that brings me to another point that is very important for you guys to know. These things are not always readily available. With the exception of the Chinese flashcart, the 161-in-1, I guarantee you could find one of these right now on AliExpress or eBay. You know, they're not that uncommon. But as far as the other two, people have said every time that they come out with a new batch, this is probably the last one that they're going to do. And that may or may not be true. I mean, with Terraonion's customer service history, people are not saying good things about them, so it would not surprise me if people stop buying their stuff altogether and they go out of business. But who knows? I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But my point is, you kind of have to be on your toes. You have to sign up on their website and say, hey, notify me when this is in stock so I can buy it. You have to play the waiting game with these. They are very few and far between, and if you look on eBay to try to get one, they're going to be much more expensive than you probably want to spend. Yeah, that secondhand reseller mentality. Wonderful stuff for this hobby, right? And also, if you do want to do that, if you just can't wait and you're an impatient person and you want this right here, right now, and you do spend money on eBay to get one of these Terraonion flashcarts for your AES, Terraonion also does something that's actually not too good in my eyes. They have their firmware updates locked behind an account. So when you purchase this cartridge right here, when you get it in the mail, one of the first things that you should do is get on the internet and sign up and make an account with Terraonion and register this cartridge with the serial number. So that way you can download any future firmware updates. And if you do not have an account and you buy one of these secondhand, you are completely out of luck. That's the way that they operate. You have to register your devices from Terraonion with Terraonion. Otherwise, you cannot access some firmware updates that you might possibly want in the future. That's not a really good business practice in my mind, and I think the reason that they do that is because they want to have an iron fist over their customer base, and they don't want their products to be sold secondhand, and that they would rather keep all that money themselves. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. That's just kind of the vibe that I'm getting from Terraonion. So all of that is a lot to think about if you're looking into getting one of these 3 flash cartridges. Honestly, if you just want to play some games and you don't really care about having all of them, like I said, Magician Lord and Shock Troopers, 2 of the really, really big heavy hitters, in my opinion, on the system, are missing from this 161-in-1 flash cartridge. That's probably the way to go. If you don't care, if you just want to play some games, all the King of Fighters are on there. You know, there's a bunch of fighting games on there. Neo Turf Masters is on there, which is a plus. The game that you're seeing back there, that's probably one of the most expensive games on the system. It's a great game. I don't like golf, but it's a great game. If you haven't played it before, you just have to play it. There's no other way for me to describe it to you. It's a great game. Now, if it were me, I would just get the Neo SD because I've already got a Neo Geo CD situation, and those extra features don't do a whole lot for me. You know, $150 extra gets you the option of playing some, but not all, Neo Geo CD games, as well as the extra slots to load things up to cut down on your load times. That's a very expensive feature, $150 just to cut down on some time. And we're talking minutes. You know, that's quite an expensive upgrade there. But now the Neo SD is probably going to be a little tougher to find compared to the Neo SD Pro, just because Terraonion is likely trying to push that one as the standard now because it is more money for them. That's just business, I guess. But if you can find one of these without having an inflated price on eBay for the resellers, and if you can find one directly from Stone Age Gamer, I highly recommend you get on their website and click that notify me when it's available button that they have there. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room that I'm sure somebody has already commented on this video before they've gotten this far. Why would you spend the money on stuff like this when you could just get on your computer and emulate it? If I have a console, if I have this piece of gaming history, this really cool, you know, monumental thing back in the 90s when this came out, it was revolutionary to have this sort of thing in your house. You don't have to go to the arcade to play these games. You can play them on your television set at home. To me, that's a really cool thing. It's the history of it. And to be able to experience the games on this original hardware just like you could back in the day is amazing to me, and I prefer to play that way. A lot of people do. A lot of people take it a step further and say that they don't want a flash cartridge. They would rather spend their hard-earned money on these legitimate cartridges and play it completely authentically like they would back in the day, and that's fine too. Yes, I have a situation on my computer right now where I could go over there right now and play any one of these games that I have on these flash cartridges on my computer, and they will probably look a lot better than they do on my AES back there. That's an option, and that's totally fine, but I just like the history of it. I like to play on original hardware, and I think flash cartridges are some of the coolest pieces of retro gaming technology that you could have because of all the things that you can do with that cartridge. There's all sorts of homebrew things, and you can do hacks and stuff like that and make audio better, and there's so many different options that you can have with flash cartridges, and that's why I choose to use them. So hey, if you're into emulation, that's totally fine, but I don't understand why you want to get on to people who don't do emulation and would rather play on original hardware. That's just kind of strange to me. If you're looking into a flash cartridge, this is what you're getting into. It's not perfect. All three of these cartridges are not perfect. There's flaws with every one of them, and I can't say anything about the Darksoft cartridge because I've never had an opportunity to purchase one. You know, I've been waiting for them, and if you look on their website right now, they even say like we don't have any plans to let you know when this is going to come out again, when the next batch is going to be available. So that's kind of disconcerting. Who knows? Maybe Darksoft is not going to make another one of these either. But, you know, like I said, people have said that about the Terraonion flash cartridges for the Neo Geo as well, and we just had a new batch come out, and that's where I got these two. So that's gonna about do it. I would love to know what you guys think about these flash cartridges, all three of them, and please share your experiences with them for everybody to check out in the comments section, because that's what this video is all about. We're just trying to help other people make a decision before they spend their hard-earned cash, because this is a commitment, and if you're buying directly from Terraonion, you might not get a refund. You might be stuck with it. So stick with Stone Age Gamer if you're going to buy something like this. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'd love to hear your opinions in the comment section below. I really appreciate you subscribing, and I'll catch you guys at the next video. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.